G'day, it's Rob here again. Well, recently I reviewed a Banggood product, the H160 oxy-hydrogen gas generator and torch, high temperature torch. And it got a lot of interest, it got a lot of views, a lot of people were really wondering what this was like. And yeah, I've got to say that it actually, for the money, it works pretty damn well. It puts out a lot of heat, very high temperature, over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will burn holes through bottoms of tin cans. And I did some bronze brazing with it, very small dimension, and the whole thing is really made for jewellery, basically. You know, that's really what it's meant for, I think. I'm trying to stretch it out to do more hobby work, like model making and things like that, and I actually did successfully bronze braze up to 3mm with it, no problem. And it went to 4mm, but it was struggling. Now the standard tip is a 0.2mm tip that gives a very intense flame, and the pattern is, flame pattern is really wrong for brazing. It's or for general brazing, it's not broad enough. So I actually rigged up a tip. They give you two tips, and I actually modified the second tip. And you would have seen it in the video. If you haven't seen the video, go back and have a look at it. You can see that, and also a follow-up one where I did the brazing. But I basically modified the tip, and I made one which is a lot bigger than standard at a rough guess. So I would say it's probably 0.7 or 8, I would think, of a millimetre. That actually gives a nice soft flame pattern, and it's good for brazing. So once again, I'm looking at this from a model making point of view, model engines, workshop stuff, and yeah, it certainly has got lots of heat, and provided you use it on things which aren't going to absorb a lot of heat, because even though this is high temperature, over 3,000 degrees, the actual number of BTHUs it's putting out, British thermal heat units, is comparatively low compared to, say, a butane torch or something. You know, you've got very intense flame, but very concentrated, and the BTHUs are also in that concentrated flame. So, you know, I was pretty pleased with the result. The unit lived up to its expectations. I had no problems with it whatsoever. Yeah, I can see it as being a very handy item for freeing up. You know, you can free up frozen little nuts and bolts with it, or do some small brazing or silver soldering with it. Once again, small dimension work. So I had a look to see whether you could get another torch for it, because this torch is okay, but there's no flashback arrestor. You've got a bubbler here to stop any flashback going back into the main unit, which of course would be catastrophic if it was to happen, so it can't do that. This is an arrestor here, and bubbles through whatever liquid you put in here, and it stops any flashback. But it would be nice to see a flashback somewhere, either in the line or in the torch. And anyway, looking on the Banggood site, they do actually sell an upmarket torch which has 5 tips of various sizes. Bearing in mind, with this unit you get 2 tips. They're both 0.2mm, and the kit that you can buy, the set, which is a replacement gun with a built-in flashback arrestor in the handle, good thing. It also comes with 5 tips, which vary in size from 0.3mm to 0.6mm, and then you get a really big tip, which is basically just, well, I don't know what it's meant for. It's just an open-ended adapter I'm not sure what that's good for. It looks like something that would cause flashback if you weren't careful. But anyway, Banggood have sent me this to have a look at. We're going to try it out and see if it actually extends the capabilities of the unit beyond the standard tip anyway, because I mean, not everybody's going to be able to make up a modified tip like I've done. So if you can buy a gun with tips that will, make it do more, go further, it can only be a good thing. So let's have a look at what they sent us. I'll put up some screen grabs, you can look at those, and then I'll show you the product. So here's the box. It looks similar to what's in the photos on the website, but Banggood descriptions and photographs aren't always true to the product being sold. In this case, there are some discrepancies, and there's also one fault which is obvious from the beginning, and that is, here's the box, which is made out of sort of cardboard, folds back, and the first thing we notice is that the box has come unglued. That'll need some attention. So the box is not doing its job long term, so that'll need re-gluing. Now, it's, what you're getting. I would like to see a better box, quite frankly. I mean, I think that's unacceptable. And I would have expected it to be in a plastic box at least, but I mean, if this was glued up properly, it would do the job for most people, I think. Okay, when you look in here, the first thing you notice is that the torch looks nothing like the one that's in the photos. The one that's in the photos has got a clear handle. This is where your flash arrestor granules are. The glass granules are in there. So the torch does look different in that respect. Now also I see in the comments that people have in the reviews which have been positive, but I do see where one guy said, the separate flash arrestor, which is shown in some of the photos, a line flash arrestor, isn't included. Well, if you read the fine print, it's obviously another item you can buy. It's never been and is not included as part of this kit. The guy obviously didn't read the fine print. So when I went to chase up that product to see if he could get the inline flash arrestor, it's not available. Banggood don't stock it, so you're just going to have to go with what's here. We're going to have to trust that there is in fact a flash arrestor in the handle. Everything else is okay. Here are your 5 tips, and the 5 tips go from 0.3 mil, they're marked A, B, C, D. 0.3 mil, which is 0.1 mil larger than the standard tip, so you've got 0.2 is standard, which is fine, so you're not doubling up. You straight away jump to a bigger one, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6 mil. The needle, there's a needle one here as well. That is actually, I measured that and it looks to be 0.4. So even though it's a needle flame for getting into things, it's actually this size here. It's not 0.3, it's 0.4. And that's what you get with the needle. And this is this other adapter, this other fitting which goes on the end, which it looks to me like it's meant to have a little airline put on it, like a gas line to run some gas. It's got that sort of fitting, It doesn't look like a flame tip. It's certainly not made of copper or brass, so I expect that this is for connecting a tiny air line of some sort, gas line. Then you get a little rest here, which you can rest it on when you're using it, keep the flame off the bench, which is a good idea, similar to what they have with soldering irons. So there it is, and it's just a matter now of having a real close look at the torch, try it and then try it out and see how it goes. Now there is one other thing that I should mention, and it's worth a note that these tips, Banggood do give you the gas volume, the feed rate, and I'll read them off for you. The 0.3 is rated at 30 to 40 litres per hour. The 0.4 mil was rated at 40 to 60 litres per hour. The 0.5 mil was rated at 60 to 100 litres per hour. And the 0.6 is rated at 80 to 150 litres per hour. However, I mean, that's to give you a suitable flame pattern. However, it's worth noting that the H160 gas generating unit has a maximum output of 75 litres per hour, so that's actually slightly less than the 0.6 mil, but it's within range of all the others. Now, what bearing it'll have on performance, I can't say, but that's something to be aware of. The first thing I do notice is that on the end it has just a standard airline connector with like a barbed end. It's not the same sort of connector, hose connector, as on the H160 unit. It's totally different. So you would have to, and it's quite a big diameter, so you would have to heat up and force the plastic hose on there. I mean, it's only a very low pressure system, so it will be okay, it will do the job, but it's just something to be aware that it's totally different fitting. Now, this is supposed to be anti-flashback. In here is supposed to be anti-flashback material, according to the diagram, even though it's not clear, you can't see in. Now, if that was the case, I wouldn't be able to push this probe up into it because it would come into contact with all the glass beads that are supposed to be in here. Let's see how we go. So there's nothing in there, that's just a tube. There's no anti-flashback in there whatsoever. What's in this end? Well, we'll flip it over and we'll see. We'll try a bit of wire, see what's in here. Possibly there's anti-flashback in here because I can only go in to that point. Now this is about the length of the additional supposedly available, but not available anti-flashback unit that goes in line after the gun. So I'm betting that there's anti-flashback in this section here, and that's basically, yep, the same dimensions, looking at the photos, as the additional bit, you know, anti-flashback arrestor for the line that isn't available, even though it's listed. Okay, so we've identified that any anti-flashback device would be in this section here. It's the only place it can be. It's the only place it's got any resistance. There's no reason for it to have any resistance in there otherwise, so yes, I would say that's where it is, and it is in there. Now, having it there rather than here, which is shown in the diagram, is actually a good thing, because what can happen with oxyhydrogen mix is that the flame front can actually, if the pressure drops off or you put too big a jet on, the flame can actually tend to go back inside the jet, can go right back to the inside of the torch, because it's got its own oxygen supply. You know, it could theoretically burn underwater. So if the flame front was to go back into the guts of the torch, it could come right back and it can actually heat up the torch and also stuff up or do bad things to the control valve. So in this case, if it does burn back, it gets to here, the flame front will then hit the anti-flashback, and that will, the way they work is that the beads or the steel wool or whatever they use, the medium, cools down the flame front to such a degree that by the time it gets to the end of the arrestor, the flame goes out through lack of heat. That's how they work. And you can actually have a flame on these, and it can look to be going okay, and you think everything's fine, but it can actually be burning inside as well. It's most likely to happen when you have a very large jet on it. And the jet I'm using is bigger than 0.6. You know, I'd be up around 0.8 probably, and maybe 0.9. So, yeah, you know, when you do that, the gas supply, the volume of gas coming through can be insufficient to actually maintain pressure and keep the flame from coming back up the jet.
Here you can see the difference between the two torches, standard torch, the upmarket torch. I've put the gas line on. Now it went on okay, I had to heat it up and force it on, but it'll never come off. That's the problem. Now if you want to use the 0.2mm tip, bearing in mind that these tips are not interchangeable between the two units, it means you're going to have to use the standard torch for the 0.2, which means you're going to have to plumb it into the outlet for the gas supply in some fashion, and it means you'll either have to swap over at the bubbler or you'll have to put a T-piece in and have the two torches plumbed in at once, but that's a restriction you're going to have. Also, another thing to note is that even though they give you this little stand which doubles as a wrench to actually screw the nut up that holds the fitting on, the actual tip, it doesn't fit very well at all. It's actually too small and it won't fit the tip. So basically you can use that as a rest, but as a wrench, unless you do some filing or something, it's not going to be any good. I would use a little shifter on it anyway. This is okay, sort of an idea I suppose, but it's a bit of a compromise. But as a stand, you know, it'll be a handy little rest, and quite a good idea. The actual fit and finish of the torch is pretty good, as good as you could want, and I've put on the smallest tip, and we'll light her up and try it out on the tin can, see if it'll burn through the tin can. So I'll use the smallest tip and the biggest tip. I won't do every tip. And I figured out what this little thing here is for. This actually goes onto the end of the needle fitting. That's basically how that works, and then that allows it to screw on. So we'll give these three a go. Okay, so this is the smallest 1.3 mil. Plenty of mumbo there. That's what you'd expect. You can see the flame size. Now we'll go to the largest. Whoa, bit of heat there. That's the big one. The gas pressure's built up a bit, so you can see the difference in flame size. Longer, bigger. So that's the 0.6. Pretty good. But I'll show you something. I actually tried the 0.5 and I found that really seems to have some mumbo. It seems to be the best of the bunch for output for some strange reason. Probably to do with gas flow or something like that. So I'll put the 0.5 on and give that a go. Right, here we go. 0.5. It really seems to have some mumbo. Look at that. It seems to be the best performing of the lot. Whew. Look at that little mother go. So I'd say 0.5 is really the optimum one for the gas flow and the unit. Yeah. All right, we'll try that needle, give that a go. Oh man, this has got some pretty potent go in it too. So there you go, you can see what you get. You can see the flames. I can't do much more as far as demonstration without, you know, making the video way too long. But you can see the torch is a great little torch. It's really good. And yeah, no flashback. Works fantastic. Well, there you have it. A great little unit. I think it's awesome. It's perfect for the H160 and it certainly gives it more capability. As you saw, some of those jets really put out some decent heat. So yeah, if you're interested, check out the link in the video description. You can go there, look at the currency for your country, see how much it costs, and go from there. Overall, I can't find much wrong with this. You know, the description on the web pages is sort of a bit misleading, and yeah, that could be better. The box is pretty crappy. That could be better, but the box is probably only going to get used once and thrown away anyway. So overall, they'd be better off if they just packed the whole thing in polystyrene block and save some money on the box. But anyway, there you have it. Yeah, good unit, really good, and thoroughly recommend it. Okay, see you next time. Cheers.